Today I will be building one of my most requested type of sword, the katana. But unlike my other builds, this katana is 100% made of paper and can be disassembled like the real sword. But for simplicity's sake, we will only be building the major components. For this build, you only need liquid glue, a craft knife, and 110-pound cardstock. Start by spreading glue on the cardstock. This will become the building material for the template. Make 20 of these and put them under books to dry for 24 hours. Build the template as shown. This should be 33 inches long and 4 layers thick. One thing to note is that because the support structure is also built from paper, I wouldn't recommend building a sword longer than 36 inches. Once you have the template built, let it dry under books for another 24 hours. Afterwards, we can draw the shape of the blade on the template. There are two ways to do this. One is to freehand the curve. The second would be to use something long enough that can be bent into a curve to be used as a guide. I happen to have a scrap piece from my other sword builds that I'll be using for a guide. Make sure you leave enough room on this template to cut out the two support pieces from it as well. The supports can be a few inches shorter than the blade, but only half the width, so plan accordingly. Here is the way that I did this. I cut the blade out first, and then I used the spine of the blade as a guide to draw the two support pieces I need as shown. Then spread more glue onto the support pieces, and glue them into place. The supports should be lined up with the spine of the blade. This will give us the underlying shape needed to make the cutting edge of the blade come to a point. Taking more of the paper we made earlier, trace out the shape of the blade and cut it out. This will double as the outer skin of the blade to conceal the supports as well as become the surface for painting. Remember to cut these pieces out slightly larger than you need them. Then trim them down to fit flush with the edges once you have them glued into place. I only did this to what will become the cutting edge of the blade. I left the tang uncovered as we will need that space to create the removable handle. Next we will make the handguard. I took two of the sheets we made earlier and folded them each in half again. Then glued them back to make the template for the tsuba. Start by finding the center, then using a compass, draw a 3-inch diameter circle. The tsuba can be any shape, but I chose to use a circle out of simplicity. Then take the blade and measure the thickness and width of where the tsuba is to sit. Then cut out a slot for that on the tsuba using the center line as a guide. Remember to test fit everything and adjust as needed. Although this is optional, I decided to paint the sword, and this is how I went about doing so. Take some painter's tape and cut a wavy line down the middle of it. This will create the hamon. I also made this ring to fit around the outside of the tsuba, another optional piece, but this requires some pretty tight tolerances to get to look right. Using more of the paper we made earlier, I cut out a 1-inch strip and painted it yellow. This is used to form the hibaki. I recommend gluing this piece into place. For the handle, start by cutting a 1.5-inch strip of paper, again using the hardened paper we made earlier. Wrap the strip around the tang, starting with the section closest to the blade. Do not glue this to the tang itself. This is going to be one of 3 pieces that will form the platform that the handle will be built on. It is also what is going to allow this sword to be disassembled. The other 2 pieces are the sections in the middle of the tang and the one at the very end of the tang, where the pommel will be. Glue the inner and outermost flaps together to keep the sleeves from unraveling as shown. Once you have these parts made, test fit them. They should all be able to slide into the proper place fairly easily. To cover the end cap, I used regular printer paper and glued them in place as shown. Keep a few sheets ready as we'll be needing them later. Using more hardened paper, cut out 2 strips that is the same length and width as the handle, and glue them onto the 3 sleeves as shown. Repeat this to the other side. This will give the handle more rigidity, as well as being a barrier to prevent the tang from being covered in glue in the next step. Using regular printer paper, cut 3-inch wide strips and spread glue on them. Use these to wrap the handle as shown. The idea here is to create a base to build on, and to give the final layer of paper something to stick to in the next step. Don't worry about any imperfections at this stage. Once you have covered the handle, take a sheet of untreated 110-pound cardstock and cut the length to match that of the handle. Then spread glue and roll the handle onto the sheet as shown. Do this until the entire sheet is glued to the handle. Now you should have a completed handle. At this stage, the handle is pressure fitted to the rest of the blade, but sometimes you might have a loose handle. Unless you can drill a hole for a makugi, the next best option is to use more paper as a shim to create a friction lock as shown. I won't be wrapping this handle because I'm going to scale it using the same black and red theme as my blowgun. Remember to like if you liked the video, dislike if you didn't. Feel free to leave a question or comment, and subscribe if you haven't already to see more tutorials like this one. You can also follow me on Twitter for behind the scenes pictures for future projects.